This is going to be the Beaded Hedebo stitch. It's what was used on the edge of this little tiny pincushion. The thread is so fine, it's really hard to see what it is, and the beads are tiny too. So I'm working much bigger for my demonstration today. I'm using a size 8 pearl cotton. So the first part of this really isn't the Hedebo. We're doing regular size cross stitches and like double size cross stitches as a base for our scallop. So to start, I'm going to come up in the bottom left hand corner of my first regular size cross stitch. I'm going to cross over to the top right hand corner, come up in the bottom right hand corner, and I am going to do the row one way and then come back the other way. Then I'm going to make another one. I'm doing it about double the width of my regular size. I am working between two drawn lines. They could be either real or you could just eyeball it. For the pincushion, I just eyeballed it a certain distance above and below the seam. So I went down in the upper right hand corner of that wide cross stitch, come up in the lower right hand corner, and my next one then is going to be just a regular size cross stitch. So to me, this is kind of the hardest part, is getting the spacing in here. So that's my short one. I'm going to come back up in the bottom right hand corner of the narrow one, or the regular size one, go down in the upper right hand corner, back up. So you would just keep doing this as long as you want this line to be. On the pincushion, I would want to start with my narrow one, and when I get all the way around, I would want a long one right before it. So that would be the goal. So now I'm just going to go back the other way. So I'm coming up in the bottom right hand corner, going back down in the same hole up here, which would be my top left hand corner on the narrow one. Come up on the bottom left hand, cross over to the top. The next one, I'm just going to work all the way across so that I have my regular size and my little bit wider cross stitches. For the pincushion, I sort of eyeballed it. I put a cross stitch where here, let me just show you. I put a small cross stitch in here where the dip was in my pincushion each time, and then I put another small one in between those two. So that's how I divided that up. And my divisions aren't exact, but close enough. And this will finish it off. Now I could just keep using the same thread, and I would if this was a project, because I don't want this to show. I want it to blend with what I'm doing my Hedebo stitch with, but I'm going to knot off and start with another color so you can see it better. So I'm ready to start going back and putting my beads on in my Hedebo stitch. I'm going to come up where I started the whole thing, right there in that bottom left hand corner of the narrow cross stitch. Now really, my smaller cross stitches should be about the width of the bead I'm going to put in, and this is the Beaded Hedebo, so I am going to put a bead on every time I'm at one of the narrower cross stitches. So I'm just going to bring it on. I'm going to go down in the upper right hand corner of that smaller cross stitch, and then I'm going to come back up in the lower right hand corner of that cross stitch, and now I'm going to start making my scallops, and this part is the Hedebo stitch. So I am going to take my needle under that wide cross stitch, so both parts of it. I want the thread, my working thread, to be above my needle. I'm going to pull through, but not all the way through. I'm going to stop with a loop. I'm going to bring my needle through that loop. So I'm coming under the top part, my needle is over the bottom part. So I'm just coming up through that loop. And then I'm going to pull down to make that little knot. and I want to pack these stitches in. So I'm going to continue to do that just over and over again. So I'm coming down through the top of my cross stitch. My working thread is above my needle. I'm going to pull through, leave a loop, and then I'm coming in through the bottom part of the loop at the top part. It's kind of sounds odd when and pull it tight so that I have a knot. And I'm packing these in tight like it's a buttonhole stitch. So again, down under the cross stitch, my working thread is above my needle. I'm going to pull through, leaving a loop at the top. I'm going to come in through that loop and pull down to make the knot. And through the loop. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way across that wide cross stitch. If it starts twisting, we got to untwist it. There we go. So remember, you can always drop your thread and let the twists come out, or your needle. So again, under those 2 threads that make up my wide cross stitch, working thread above my needle, pull through, leaving a small loop, bring your needle through the loop, and I'm going to work all the way across that wide cross stitch, packing my threads in tight. Now when I get that whole cross stitch filled in, then I'm going to take my needle down through the very top right hand point of that long cross stitch. I'm going to bring my needle back up now on my bottom left hand corner of my narrow cross stitch. I'm going to put another bead on, and I'm going to cross over to the top right hand corner of that narrow cross stitch, and that's just what holds my bead. Again, I'm going to come up in the bottom right hand corner of that smaller cross stitch. Going to take my needle through under both of the threads in the wide cross stitch. My working thread is above my needle. Pull through, leaving a loop. I'm going to come in through the loop with my needle and pull it tight. So that's all it is. We're just going to keep repeating that all the way down, packing in the Hedebo stitches. Those are the Hedebo stitches actually. Remember, the cross stitch was just a base for us to work them on. Through the loop. So I think it's a little bit harder with the finer thread that was used in the pincushion. It likes to twist on you a little bit more. But it is doable, and it is so tiny that unless somebody's got a microscope or a magnifying glass, they're not going to be able to tell. So that's our beaded Hedebo.